Hi there, welcome to the studio. My name is Matthew Palmer and welcome to this 10-minute watercolour workout where today we're going to be painting this wonderful watercolour. It's going to be a great one to do, so do enjoy this. You can work for 10 minutes, you can go a little bit over, add a few little extra tweaky bits here and there, but the great thing is that we're going to do this in pretty much 10 minutes. We all have busy lives, and having that little bit of artistic space, even if it's 10 minutes, you can produce something quite rewarding and quite enjoyable. Great escapism as well. The paper here is stuck to a board on all four sides. It's roughly 10 inch by about 5 or 6 inch, something like that. Let's take a look at the materials. Materials for this painting, I'm going to be using a couple of brushes. We've got a size 10 and a size 6 round. These are a medium and small Matthew Palmer Super Point brush. We've got natural grey. We've got some natural green dark or natural green. Recently changed the name to natural green dark. We've also got some natural brown and some natural violet, and here we've got some natural opaque white. These are exclusive colours to Watercolour TV. Let's get started. Back to this then. I'm just going to use little bits of tape here to kind of do a bit of a mountainscape before we start painting. I do want to suggest here that you get your fingernails in this tape, give it character, and also want to suggest that you give it as much little bits of wrinkles and creases to give it more character. It's also worth saying, just remove the stickiness a little bit. Paint will seep down the back of this tape, but it will look quite natural, so don't worry too much about that one. Down here, and we'll just do one creep up there like that. So that's at a good seal. It's also useful as well to get put something under the top of the board as well, like that, and then we're ready pretty much to get started. So we're going to paint in a sky. I've got my size 10 brush here, and the first thing I want to do really is I want to wet the page, the top at least, just not too much because it can seep down the back. So once towards the tape will be enough with the water. So this is a size 10 or a medium Matthew Palmer brush, Super Point brush. So that's one coat of water down there. You can pop a couple of coats of water towards the top. I'm going to go for a lovely sort of atmospheric kind of sky here. So what I want to do first, I want to use some skin tone light. There's dark and light skin tone. I'm going to use light skin tone, quite strong to be fair. I want to twist it in, get right down to the tape, and we'll give it a bit of a wiggle. And we'll do another one down here. Get plenty of colour right down towards this tape. Beautiful colour. So you got that lovely sort of contrast kicking in there. That's light skin tone. I want to use some natural violet next. You could use natural orange instead of the light skin tone, but natural violet, again, a twisted brush stroke. You can see I'm wiggling the brush along the page as I put it on, giving it a nice little wiggle. Using the side of the brush, take it right down to the tape edge as well at this point. Get your paint wiggling in. Let it mix with the skin tone, because it'll go like a grey, which is quite nice, what we want here. And we'll bring that right down. So you're getting that lovely contrast seal effect. We're going to jump into some natural grey next. Don't be afraid of strength of colour when you're pulling natural grey, and get some lovely twisty clouds using that same twisty brush stroke that we mentioned before. Bring it in and sort of let it taper off. Don't be afraid of the taper as you do this. Put some little lines of these coming in, hanging around the tops of the mountains. Bring it in. There we go. It's looking nice, isn't it? You know, already it's got that lovely effect that we're interested in. And that'll really create a lovely effect. Now what I want to do here is just rinse the brush out and wipe it on tissue. Squeeze it flat as well through your fingers, and then you can just lightly use the edge of the brush to just create a slightly underlit effect. You sort of drag the brush upwards. It's also a good time to blend out any little hard edges that you're not so keen on, but that little bit of a drag, it's like a little flick. You sort of put your brush on, then you flick it, and it lifts the paint off quite nicely, I think, which is a good little technique to do in your watercolours. Beautiful. Now that needs a little bit of time to dry. Just going to put a little bit of light up here. There we are. So I'm just going to stop the clock and give that a dry with a hair gun or heat dryer, and I will remove the tape at the same time. So using natural violet with a bit of grey mixed into it, so it's slightly darker colour. Somewhere between the two kind of thing. Everything, of course, is nice and dry here. We're going to go in and put some shadows into this thing. Quite brave, one at a time. Clean the brush in the water, give it a couple of taps on the tissue, and go straight in. Now the paper will be dry to work on, so you're working wet on dry, which is all part of the effect, what we want here. Keep that brush, keep dunking it in the water, keep giving it a couple of quick wipes over tissue, still using the size 10 brush, and blend the paint in to your paper. We can create with the same colour, you can create like a separation effect here. So you can add one just creeping up the back there. You can actually create some further peaks to that one and create an edge like that. Again, rinse your brush, a couple of taps on tissue. You can see I'm just going in and so already you can see what we're going for. This side needs to be darker, definitely needs to be darker. So we're going in for some grey on its own, natural grey on its own. A couple of taps. Things are a little bit damp still. I do actually want to darken that edge with the grey. So we can go up here and we can make that edge a little bit darker and create a bit of shadow coming down. Clean brush again. So it's like a 2-layer shadow process. It's quite nice. It doesn't matter that the background's a bit damp. If anything, it gives it more character, I always think, on this. So a little bit of a brush down, following the direction. You can see how you can create angles, can't you? Pretty instantly, really. I want to use that same colour just to drop in a few shadows just on one side of these little peaks. Again, water, just water. Skim the brush over it. Blend it in. Looks as though your light's coming in from this one side and it's creating a lovely edge, beautiful edge. I think we probably need to give this another dry at this point. So I'm just going to give that another blast with the dry. I'm just going to add that little bit of a line down there, just to create a little bit more separation. Again, water, blend it in. I'm going to give that a dry. But before I do that, I want to make sure that everything's nicely blended in. So here we have some natural green, which is a lovely dark, deep green. I'm mixing it with a little bit of the grey that's still in the palette. And what I want to do there is I want to come in and paint in some tall trees, almost like pine trees. And I can afford to do these actually. I'll start with the size 10 brush actually. I can afford to do these quite freely. So we'll get the green there. And we'll go in. Don't be afraid of putting these in nice and quick. I want to change colours in a second and change brushes. So I'm still using quite a big brush here. I want to go a little bit more towards a grey, maybe even slightly misty, which means slightly paler colour. And then again, just go in. And the plan is to get that to blend across. Use a bit of water. You can make it blend even more if you want to. So it's creating like almost like a grey mist. You know, so you get that looks further away than that, right? Which is perfect. And then if we use the mix of the two, the natural green dark or natural green with grey, with a size 6 brush, we can pick out just a few little these pretty quickly. tall trees. Don't want too many of these. Rock the brush from side to side. And you can almost work dry brushing between them, because it creates like an illusion. I think in your mind when you do this kind of thing, you sort of, maybe if you're new to painting, the temptation would be to paint every single tree, but really you don't need to. Just paint a collection, half a dozen or so, and then you follow it up with a bit of a dry brush, which is me tapping off the excess on the kitchen paper and going in, and it's creating a textured effect, which is quite nice. So we can add as many little bits of these lines as we see fit. I've got this little piece of tissue here, which has actually been floating around the studio for a few weeks now, and it's allowing me to add texture to this. Talking about texture, if I take some natural brown, there it is, and we do a little bit of a dry brush with that, we can actually go in and we can add the little bits of rock that pokes out the tops of the snow. You've all seen scenes. A lot of you would have flown over the Alps on the airplanes, and when you've been on your holidays and things, and you see the lovely rocky texture that comes out of these little mountains, little bits of rock. There is a name for this, isn't there? I can't remember what it is, but it just gives it a little bit of texture, and such a simple but effective way of doing mountains. I always think adding a bit more grey to that colour once you've done some in brown. Don't forget the tissue. How could we? But a little bit of a textured sweep coming over these mountains. It's soon comes together. I want to pop a little bit of that colour down in these trees as well here. Actually, just give it a bit more shadow down here. It was along that. Right, even just doing another little sneaky little tree. I mean, you could quite happily say the painting's finished at that, and I think it works well as a picture. But I'm just going to do a couple of little, now the 10 minutes are up, just going to do a few little final little optional tweaks that you may or may not want to do. For example, if I use quite a pale grey, I'm tempted just to paint in like a tall tree, but slightly in the mist. Something like that. Do you know what I mean? So you've got that nice impression of like a misty tree line, which actually frames the picture lovely, don't it? The composition is great on that, which is perfect. You've got all the colours you want here, so any colour goes really. I'm going to just put in a bit more time on that tree there, I think. And maybe even just a couple little added extra dark bits inside the mountains, but I think we're good. I am going to take just a little hint of white paint. I've actually got some white paint here on this bit of card. It's pretty fresh. I've been doing another painting, so it's pretty fresh. I'm going to use that just to add some little white flicks into the mountain. These again are not needed. If you're sticking with the 10-minute rule, then don't worry about this, but I just want to show you that you can just add a few little extra bits to the picture should you want to, but totally optional. You know what I mean? You don't have to do any of this if you don't want to. It very much works as is. But should you want to go the extra mile, as it were, quite easy to do so. So it's quite nice to put that on. If you just get a bit of water on your brush, and then just give it a tap. You can just go into the white and just give it a bit of a blend out as well. It's quite effective. And at the same time, of course, as putting the white on there, you could even take a little bit of white again, just to make it that little bit more detailed if you want to, and just pop just a very weak suggestion, a little bit of white on some of these trees. You don't have to do this by any means. It's just a nice way of saying there's a bit of snow settled on, the occasional little tree, breaks up the mass, but again, not necessarily has to be part of the painting. But in actual fact, it works quite nice. Just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. Take a little bit more of that grey. This is the pale grey that I used for the tree here, because that tree looks a little bit undernourished. A bit of grey down in this corner. Brilliant. There we go. I finished 10-minute watercolour. Really nice, quick exercise to do that, and what an effective picture it is as well. I love look at the skin tone colours. Both of them, the dark and the light one, they just come through once the paper's dry. But that's made a very pleasing 10-minute watercolour. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.